Hi, I'm Jeremy here with Dr. Danny Faulkner. He's our astronomer here at Answers in Genesis, and we are in the observatory right now with all these telescopes, and we have a question that many people have been searching for on Google, and they are finding our article on the subject, which you wrote, What Will Happen on September 23rd, 2017? So, Dr. Faulkner, if you could take it away from here and answer that question for us, I'd be grateful.
All right. Well, the short answer to the question is probably nothing really important will happen that day. That doesn't stop people from getting very excited. This has been traveling around on the internet with numerous articles and YouTube videos and such about it. And it's people's interpretation of Revelation 12 verses 1 and 2. And I'll very briefly paraphrase what it says. It says John wrote that there was a sign in the sky, and it was a woman clothed in the sun with the moon at her feet, with a crown of 12 stars on her head, and she was about to give birth. And so many people are thinking that this will literally be fulfilled on September 23rd here in 2017. Now what they mean by that is you have this constellation Virgo, which is a woman, and on that date the sun will be in the upper part of that constellation, so in a way she's kind of clothed with light, and the moon will be down near her feet, or at least the part of the constellation representing her feet, and the planet Jupiter will be located near the midsection of her, near where a woman's womb would be, and that would represent the child. And then above her head there's the constellation Leo, and it has 9 stars, and then there are 3 naked eye planets, look like bright stars, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And you add those 3 with a 9, you get 12, that's the crown, and it all comes together to be some great apocalyptic sign. Now, what does that sign mean? Well, most of them don't tell you exactly what it is. Some of them will say, well, I think that's the return of the Lord on that date, or the next day, or within 10 days or so. Others just kind of leave you hanging with the obvious implication that that is their intent. Let's take a look at this, just deconstruct it and see what actually is going on here. Is there a Virgo, a constellation in the sky? Yes, there is, and it does lie along the ecliptic. It's one of the zodiacal constellations, and so each year the moon traverses through those constellations. Since there are 12 of them, the sun sends about 1 month in each one of those. So every year, September, early October, the sun is indeed in the constellation Virgo, but again for about a month every year. Now, the moon, it takes about a month. In fact, that's the definition of a month. It takes 27 1/3 days to orbit the Earth with respect to the stars. So that means it lines up in the same location roughly every 27 1/3 days, or roughly a month. So once a month, the moon will be near what we call would be the face of near the feet of Virgo. So on the 23rd of September this year, the sun will be in Virgo, and the moon will be in the lower part of Virgo, representing the feet. So far, so good. Now, as far as as Jupiter representing the child, I think that's a bit of a Rorschach test. Where did they get the idea this has to be a child? I don't know. That's just something people made up and kept repeating it. But let's not even argue with that. That's pretty thin, I think, but I'll just let that one go. Now, Jupiter takes 11.8 years to orbit around the stars with respect to the Earth. That's the orbital period of the sun, and also it goes back and forth, what we call retrograde motion in between each year. But it takes about 1 year to go through one constellation. So the planet Jupiter is indeed in the constellation Virgo this year, as it was 12 years ago in 2005, and 12 years before that in 1993, and so forth in the past. In fact, I point out to people, I first saw Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, in the constellation Virgo, actually, 48 years ago, in 1969. So that year it was kind of fulfilled as well, if you waited until September when the moon was also there. Now, what about the 9 stars in Leo? This is where they really lose me on this one. This gets repeated so many times that there are 9 stars in the constellation Leo that most people just assume that that's true. In fact, I've had people argue with me about this. Folks, I'm a professional astronomer. I have a PhD in astronomy. I taught astronomy and physics for over a quarter century at a university. But long before that, I was an amateur astronomer. I've been a student of the skies for nearly a half century. Pretty serious. And Telescope, their monthly star chart, used to put 9 stars together to make up Leo. But a number of years ago, they changed. Now they have 13. I have a planisphere I bought nearly a half century ago. It shows the planet, all the constellations in the northern hemisphere, including Leo, and it shows 10 stars, the way I like to see it done. Here at the Creation Museum, our planetarium has a Digistar 5 system. We have 10 stars being displayed. So what is it, 9, 10, 13, or some other number out there? Well, there is no hard and fast rule. A man named Claudius Ptolemy in the 2nd century A.D. codified the constellations for us, wrote them down, and he cataloged far more than 9, 10, or even 13 stars. There are actually scores of stars in Leo. And how you draw them together and which ones you think are important is a matter of personal opinion. Now, what got everybody excited is there's one particular planetarium software, or desktop planetarium software, I should say, called Stellarium. And if you ask it to instruct it to put the lines connecting the stars together in constellations, lo and behold, on Leo it shows 9 stars. But it also shows many other stars. So this idea that there are 9 stars and only 9 stars in Leo, or 9 principal stars, is not a matter of fact. It's a matter of opinion. And Stellarium simply happened to do that. And so I reject the concept that it is 9 stars there. And if you add the 3, that would get you 12. But if you started with 13, that would get you 16. If you add 10, that would give you 13. So you've got a real problem here trying to make that fit to everything. And contrary to a lot of the claims out there, this thing only happens, once every 7,000 years or something. It actually happens more often than that. Having those 3 planets there in Leo, that's not all that common, I'll have to admit that, but it's not unprecedented. And furthermore, Leo is not that close to Virgo. It's actually some distance away, and quite a stretch, I think, to argue that that is a crown on her head. So I'm very pessimistic about this meaning much of anything. My knowledge of astronomy tells me otherwise, and I'm also a student of history. I've been, for the past 45 years, going through a regular cycle of people declaring the end of the world. I recently counted up, I've been through at least 9 ends of the world in my adult lifetime. This will be number 10 this time around. So folks, let's just calm down a little bit. Let's don't get upset. Let's just sit back and think about this very carefully and pray about it. And more importantly, let's wait until September 24th to maybe have a conversation about it. If I'm wrong, I'll be happy to admit I'm wrong. But all these other people out there, if they're wrong, will they be happy to admit that they are wrong, or will they just sort of forget about all of this? So many of these conversations, we forget the most important thing. The Lord himself, Lord Jesus himself, and Matthew talked about the fact of the end of the world and the signs of the end of the times. And he said, don't stand around, didn't say stand around looking for these signs so you can figure out what day it will happen. He says, because nobody will know the day, nobody will know the hour, nobody will know the time. The important point is that we need to be ready. So the big question is, whether it's September 23rd or not, are you ready?